Let's start. Share. Okay. So in our new chapter or new lecture, optical transmission, which is actually optical source, are divided into two part, two category. One is the laser. The type of another source is the LED. LED is very common because nowadays LED technology is very, like LED bulb is very famous to our household. So light emitting diode. That's also a optical source, but the most importantly, the optical source used in communication is the laser. So the abbreviation is light amplification by stimulated emission. That's actually the key word here, or radiation. So if we can have a light from a source because of the stimulated emission, that will be the laser mechanism. So we will actually, there is a comparison of light and LED due to their characteristics. One is the coherence. So what is the coherence? When we have a light source, for example, in the laser, when light created, every photon actually have same phase and same direction. They goes to the same direction. Unlike LED, when the photon created, photon is nothing but the unit of the light, right? It goes actually different direction. That's why the LED is so bright, because we can see LED in all directions, right? Which we do not see as a laser. That is called coherence. It inherits the properties of the previous photon. If one photon goes to one direction, the next one also wanted to go to the next direction, same direction. So they actually follow the same phase and direction. Okay. So chromaticity means actually whether one light, for example, in LED, if you have a master like wavelength, but the same wavelength can be divided into a number of wavelengths. It's a combination of, for example, most of the cases, the LED is a white light. So white light is a combination of many wavelengths. That's why it's called multi-wavelength. But in laser, most likely, or it's possible to generate a signal in a single wavelength. Means actually for high performance application, laser are used. So output is very low. That we can see from the reason the output is low, because light goes to all directions. They are not concentrated. But if light goes to a single directions, the intensity increases. Also the power increases. Most of the cases it's multi-mode. Means because of this chromaticity. Multi-mode means lots of wavelength are there. But it's mostly single mode, the laser, but it can also be produced as a multi-mode. So it's actually low data rate. It has a high data rate. Cost is low. It's actually bulk high because of the simple. It's a high cost because of the structure. Cavity structure is there. When we will study laser structure, then we will study this part. Okay. So mostly for a cheap application, you will be using LED for very sensitive or high power. High power means in telecommunication, where your signal has to go far before amplification. For example, if we start a signal transmission, we really want to go thousands of kilometers before amplification. Means in that time you need really high power laser so that it can travel longer distance. Okay. Okay. So we will study the principle of a laser. What is the basic concept of a? The concept of laser actually comes from the very concept of Venn diagram of molecules. For example, you have an atom in the first circle. If you give enough energy, atom will be goes to or end up to the higher band. It's always, this is the nature of the like atomic nature. So based on this concept, I like to draw three diagram. Okay. Probably this is very known to you. The first concept is called absorption. which means if you have this is a band diagram, right? Basic concept, band diagram. It's energy band diagram, right? So you have a ground state. So this is a ground state. This is excitation state or excited state. In equilibrium, which we usually call thermal equilibrium, usually the electrons are here. Here, electron always wants to stay in the lower energy band. Okay. Now, if you give enough energy to this electron, it will go to the higher energy. This ground one is called the valence band, ground state. This is called our valence band. That's why we can call this energy state is EV. So from the valence band, the energy goes to its higher energy state, we call conduction band. So the band gap between these two is called EG. So this amount of energy you need to give him from transporting one electron from here to here. So EG is h nu. H is the Planck's constant and nu is the frequency of this electron. So when the electron ended up there in at higher energy, so when electron goes there, there will be a hole created immediately here, right? That's actually we know. So this state is called the energy absorption state. Okay, so now imagine this electron is here. Electron is already here. Okay. Now it has the excited state. This electron do not want to stay actually in this state, because this is not his until you keep him giving this extra energy, Eg. So the electron which is here eventually will fall down as soon as you remove this extra energy, and the energy to it absorbed earlier, this Eg, same energy will be released, because we know it, the energy conservation law. Okay. So this state we call spontaneous emission. Now, when this process will be repeated, means actually if the number of electron is many, means actually you were keep giving this Eg, then lots of energy would be absorbed. Lots of energy would be absorbed, and they will be ended up here, right? Ended up here. That's actually this state. When probably this electron falls, and it will instigate other electrons also to fall. So a stream of electron will start falling, and they will release the same energy, and this energy will be released as a photon energy. Of course, it's not for every material this will not happen, isn't it? It will depends on the choice of material. Okay, for some material this loss of energy will be in terms of heat. If you choose properly, then this will be photon. When all these electron will fall down, they will release photon, which will actually have the same direction and the same phase. This state is called stimulated emission. So you see, to end up in this stimulated emission, we definitely had to have some absorption. If the absorption operation do not happen, how the electrons will end up here, right, in the higher energy band. But when the absorption happens, the first electron which will fall down, it will actually do by spontaneous. Spontaneous it will fall down, and others will follow. Actually, it will instigate others to follow his. But when the others electrons will start falling, they will actually make some coherence between them. That's why we will have this coherence in laser. Means actually for stimulated emission, before this operation happens, spontaneous emission had to happen. Because of spontaneous emission, the photon goes to arbitrary. This is a photon and it goes to arbitrary direction. Means actually this photon will cause the noise in the system, but the rest of the photons will give you actually rise of your own signal. So your signal, as soon as the photon will spontaneous emission will transmit or change to the stimulated emission, less amount of noise will be in the system. If this spontaneous emission happens for longer time, then more and more noise will be in your laser. So when you will designing a laser, you will make sure that spontaneous that has to happen. Definitely that will happen, but you will see through that this mechanism happens for a very short time. So you will have very low noise in the system. Okay. So for example, we'll denote the rate of absorption R absorption. For example, this is the rate of spontaneous. This is the rate of stimulation, right? So you see, whatever goes up falls down, isn't it? Whatever goes up falls down. So R absorption is the total electron that actually causes two electron go to the rise, and spontaneous and R stimulation are actually the reason this electron which are actually here or here, they fall down. So whatever goes up falls down. So whatever goes up falls down. So the rate of absorption is actually the summation of the rate of spontaneous and stimulation emission, their combination. Okay, we can write it a little bit different, where this is their rate. So it's denoted by B prime N1. N1 is actually the number of electron in the lower state, N1. And the number of electron in the higher state is N2 or N2. So the equation stimulation is okay. Here these are some constant. Okay, we don't bother about that. We see that N1 is the related to the absorption, because N1 is actually in the number of electron in the higher energy state, or in equilibrium, and N2 are in the, sorry, N1 is the lower energy state and N2. So we have N1, we have N1 and N2. Okay. So N1 is the number of electron in the lower energy, and N2 is the higher energy, number of electron in the energy state. Now you see, for stimulated emission, when the laser works, what happens? The number of electron in the higher energy state, N2, has to be higher than the N1. Then actually this happens. Means actually N2 has to be higher than N1. This is the mechanism when this stimulated emission happens. We call it population inversion. The inversion of the number of electrons in the higher energy state compared to the lower energy state, the number changes. N2 becomes the like the number of electron in the higher energy state is much higher than the number of. Then actually this is the condition for the stimulated emission. Means actually what? The absorption has to happen for a longer time. Then this rate of stimulation, it can actually overcome so that this condition satisfies. Okay, so this is actually a very basic principle how a laser works. Okay. Okay, if in future lectures, probably when necessary, we'll go into more detail. Okay, guys, question? So to discuss more, we'll actually discuss about this PN junction stuff. You mostly know it. Just to recall, if we like to know the operation of laser and LED both, we really need to know the PN junction operation. You already know that when we use a intrinsic silicon, mostly, then we call it undoped. Then we add some impurities, we call it doping, right? Now, what is an intrinsic semiconductor? Like pure semiconductor, isn't it? In a pure semiconductor, like for our cases, mostly we are very much familiar with the silicon, so let's make it silicon, whatever, any kind of. So in intrinsic semiconductor, there is a valence band V, and for example, conduction band. Okay, so there is a in between, we called it Fermi level, right? EF, because it's intrinsic, let's give it a name, EFI. So in intrinsic semiconductor, N equal to H. Here by N, I mean number of free electron in the valence band and number of holes. I'm sorry, I beg your pardon, because when electron goes there, electron actually here, the number of electron in the conduction band is equal. So let's see, electron is like this filled up. Okay. So when, for example, when an electron was at the beginning was here, when it goes there, so electron becomes this, and this one becomes a hole, right? Nothing. That's how. So number of electron is actually the number of holes in a in intrinsic material or intrinsic semiconductor. That's why the Fermi level is actually in between. So how can move the Fermi level? We can move the Fermi level up and down. How? If we increase the electron number of electron here, then the Fermi level will move towards the conduction band. If we increase the number of holes here, then the Fermi level will actually move towards the valence band. That's actually, you know it, right? Okay, so now this was an intrinsic semiconductor. This was an intrinsic. Now we like to dope it. We add some impurities. Okay, so by adding impurities, we can make it as a N type. We can make it as a P type, isn't it? So, for example, if our material is silicon, what happens in silicon? Silicon makes covalent bond, right? The most outer shell of this atomic structure, there will be 4 atoms, right? Isn't it? Which actually make bond with another silicon having 4. We call it covalent bonding, isn't it? You know it. Now because silicon now it is very stable now, because no free electron or whatever, we need to add some impurities. What we do, we add some or try to make a bonding with either 5 or either 4 electron at the outer circle, right? If it's 5, then what will happen? 4 will make bond with them and 1 electron will be extra. That will be our N-type material. If it's 4, I beg your pardon, it should be 3. If it's 3, then when it makes bonding with the silicon, then what happens? 1 will be always less, which will be act as a hole or positive. Then we make it as a p-type. You know it, right? This is like in our electronics is very common, right? So I write it again, the Venn diagram. So it's actually EV for P, it's EVP, for example, it's E conduction band P. And this is E, if it would be intrinsic, that this was supposed to be the, but which is not, this will change. This value will change. Same thing, this is conduction band for N-type. This is valence band for N-type, and of course this is E intrinsic for N-type. Now, what happens in P-type? In P-type, our Fermi level will be moving what? P-type, P-type means 3. There will be always a positive. So it will be close to the valence band, isn't it? So it will push the valence band to the Fermi level to the valence band. So we can call it FP, for example. Because we add 5 electron, then there will be always a free electron. So our Fermi level will be here, which we can call it E Fermi N. Got it, guys?
Yes, sir.
It's very common to our basic electronics. Okay. Now they are separate. Okay. They P and N types is got separate. If you connect them, like make them sandwich, like this was a P type, and you make it as N type. So P and N, then we call it P-N junction. Okay. And the current, due to this, we know there is a what is called depletion region created, and then the diffusion current, blah blah blah, isn't it? So the current I, we know it from a very common electronics book, I equal to IS e to the power QV by K, which is Boltzmann's constant, T minus 1. Very famous formula. Q is the charge, this is the voltage in the equivalence or equilibrium. K is the Boltzmann constant, T is the room temperature. You remember or forget that this stuff? Actually, I draw it here. Let's see. So we have a P type. So in P type, who is extra? Positive, isn't it? Lots of free, like lots of holes in the P type. Also here. Okay. In N type, negative charge, extra free electron, right? Also here. Now, this is their boundary. Here is the boundary of P and N. So when we will actually sandwich them together, what will happen? In the close to the boundary here, because it's at the room temperature, 25 degrees centigrade. So this temperature is enough so that the enough energy in the this energy, because we can have this temperature T. So there will be enough energy so that electron and hole can recombine. So electron will go there and will recombine. Electron will go there and recombine. Electron will go there, recombine, isn't it? Electron hole pair recombination. We say electron hole pair recombination. Very famous concept in electron hole pair reconstruction. When this electron goes there, leaves it, what will happen? It will create a positive charge here, isn't it? Whenever this leaves there, it will create a positive charge because it leaves there. It creates a positive charge. It leaves there, and it goes there, so it will be a negative charge particle. Right? Now, this happens in equivalence. So the first operation happens in like in thermal equivalence, like thermal or room temperature. Now these electrons, it cannot actually overcome there, goes there because this region is too high. It cannot jump to there. It needs enough energy, and it don't have that energy at room temperature until you make it forward biasing. Right? Okay, so how can we make forward biasing? For example, we have to give a chance. So this is negative, this is positive, isn't it? Then it will be a forward biasing. Then the negative, all the negative from this forward negative, it will actually come here. There will be enough supply. Then that voltage will actually blah 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 happens. We are not going to like it's not electronics class, so we do not want to go there. Okay. Who is making noise here? Okay. Now, what happens at this equivalence when so there will be a voltage will create from this region to this region. So for example, E, we called it potential barrier, this E, and this region from here to here we call depletion region. Very fundamental, probably most we are just recalling it. Don't worry. Now, what happens in thermal equilibrium? What happens in thermal equilibrium? In thermal equilibrium, okay, this is our P type and N type. So let's name it. So this is E conduction band P, E valence band P. So E conduction band of N and E valence band of N. This is actually E Fermi level of P, and this is E Fermi level of N. At equilibrium, E Fermi level of P and N, they will be in the same level. And this amount is this because of this potential region, the potential barrier. This is called the potential barrier. You know, for silicon, it's 0.7, right? 0.7 voltage has to be overcome. Now you see where was the intrinsic? For example, this was intrinsic, EIP, and for it, for example, this was the EIN. So this is amount don't look same. Okay, let me draw it again. Say this one. So EIN. So this value actually is same as this one. Okay, our system do not looks like okay. Anyway, so what is this value? This is actually EIP minus EFP, right? And this one is EFN minus EIN. These are actually equivalent. EIP minus EFP is equivalent to EFN minus EIN. IN, which is actually the potential barrier. So this is actually potential barrier by QV, which is actually this one, this one in our formula, the potential barrier. So from, okay, so now if this structure, the structure are like well-known structure that we have studied for a long time, that structure is called homojunction structure. What is in a homojunction structure? Like same semiconductor materials are used. Of course, probably silicon, or here germanium or whatever. Now electron hole recombination occurs over a wide region. So you see here, this is the region where the electron hole recombination happens. So if you have, like we draw it very shortly, it can be extended, right? This can be extended, missing in a wide range of region, the electron hole recombination happen. So okay, now means actually the carriers are not concentrated to these areas. Actually, these areas, we are talking about this area. This area. So there will be electron where they will jump from valence band to conduction band, but electrons will be here. When someone goes there, one electron will come here to vacant this area. Like this will comes here like this. So electron can be all the areas, hole can be in all the areas. You see, means actually hole and electron, they are not concentrated in a small region. Okay, if they are concentrated in a wide region, this will happen. High carrier densities will not occur because they are spreading over a wide region. Now, what is the solution? Because this kind of combination is not good for making laser. So same thing, we like to sandwich a thin layer between the P and N type. Means what? There will be another region here in P and N type. We'll see next time. And band gap, the layer we are choosing is band gap should be smaller, and same crystalline structure should be. It means actually the P and N type, whatever material was used for this P and N type, inside, for example, here is a picture of that figure. This is a P type material. This is an N type material. For example, they are same silicon type material, but in between actually we add another material over the P and N type material. Actually not this, up to this, over the P and N type material. So that material is its crystalline structure should be the same or very close, which is called the lattice constant. Lattice constant should be very close. What is the lattice constant? Actually, I have drawn, for example, this is a lattice structure of like any material, for example, silicon. So this is one corner. So this is, for example, distance A, distance B, and distance C. This is how we actually categorize our any crystal. So the material we want to choose here, their crystal structure should be very, very similar, but their band gap should be lower. You see, this is the band gap energy, right? For standard, this is also same as in equilibrium, in thermal equilibrium. Now we will add a small region here or such a material whose band gap will be lower, but its lattice structure should be, you see, two conditions. Lattice structure should be same, lattice structure, but band gap is low. Gap low. So we have to choose it or we have to find it. So what benefit this kind of structure will get us? And this kind of structure actually is called heterostructure or heterojunction. Previously, it was called homojunction, which is, we know it typically in our electronics, but that electronic structure cannot be used in optics. So we need to invent, or we need to re-engineer the whole stuff. Means actually we have to do for heterostructure. In heterostructure, we add an extra layer between the two layer. Okay, for example, in semiconductor, sorry, for electronics, we use a silicon, and we impede, or we add impurities in the silicon to make P and N. P and N is nothing but to make a free hole and free electron mechanism. We can do the same stuff by using another material. For example, P-type material will be gallium, and N-type material will be arsenic. Arsenic is at the outer shell, it has 5 electron. For gallium, its outer shell, it has 3 electrons. You see, 3 and 5 condition are fulfilled. In between, we will add another material. We'll choose it from next list, that what could be this material. Okay, so what is the benefit? So this is the benefit. You see, in N-type material and in there will be an extra layer. We called it active material. Why active? Because of this. If it's active, electron hole will be concentrated here in this region. Where in our cases, in this region. In this region. Here the hole will be concentrated here. Electron will be concentrated. You see, hole and electron, where the band gap is low. Here the band gap is low in this region. Means actually here this Eg, for example, 1, and this is, for example, Eg2. Electron will never choose Eg2, because if he can go from higher energy state, sorry, lower energy state to the higher energy state by using less energy, why you will choose? It will go to the higher energy. It will never go there. So all the electrons actually, holes will be concentrated here, and electrons will concentrated here. It's actually nothing but alluring your electron or holes in this region. You see, you are baiting, like when you catch the fish, you have to give a bait. Same thing for electron and hole. You have to reduce their energy gap. It always goes or moves to the energy gap where it needs less energy to cross that energy gap. Okay. Okay. Now this is the, you see, this is the band gap from here. Like if we compare, so this was the N-type, this was the P-type, and in between there is an active layer. Means actually their band gap is higher here, band gap is much lower here. Okay, means actually all the electrons will be here, holes will be here. Of course, electron will always choose this path to go from higher energy to the lower energy to the higher energy. It will never choose this path. So what will be the indexes? Because of this one, the refracting index of this region will be higher than this region. For example, if it's N1 and this is N2, so N2 refracting index N2 is higher than N1. Means what? This will act as a waveguide, dilated waveguide. This active region, introduction of this active region will act the same thing as a waveguide or optical fiber. Means actually more and more modes will be concentrated to the active region. You see here, higher refracting index means what? We actually seen in our optical fiber, the higher refracting index, higher refracting. What does it mean? When you introduce an active region, you can actually change the refracting index of that material. Means actually higher refracting index is actually literally connected to the band gap. If your band gap is small, you have higher refractive index of that material. Right? So that is the reason we are actually want to use a hetero structure compared to the homo structure, where we have all these benefits. Got it? Okay. Now, we will actually discuss two concepts. These are actually old concepts we mostly used in electronics, but how they're different in optics, we will actually see. So in semiconductor, there are two kinds of band gap in semiconductor. One is called the direct band gap, another one is called indirect band gap. So what happens in a direct band gap? In direct band gap, for example, this is a here the band diagram is drawn in EK diagram. This is called EK diagram. The valence band and conduction band actually drawn in EK diagram. What is this EK diagram? This is the energy and this is the momentum or kinetic energy diagram. Okay. So in direct band gap diagram, the electron is here. And this is a hole. There is a hole here. So if it's electrons or if holes, it goes there or it falls. So this is actually the EG band diagram from conduction band to. Now, if an electron falls down from valence band to conduction band, what will happen? A light releases to H nu. You see, when this electron is falling from valence band to conduction band, what is the momentum? Change of momentum. Here, change of momentum is 0 because this electron do not change any momentum. It's only change its energy, E, energy. It didn't change any momentum. So there are just two ways. Two ways this energy, that every electron has an energy E. Every electron has a momentum K. When it changes its position from the valence band to conduction band, it has to observe the conservation law of energy conservation, right? So when it falls from the valence band, the extra energy is loses as H nu. So E is fulfilled. Now, what about the K? You see, there was no K change of K. Here, whatever the K was here, it has the same K. When it falls, the K do not changes. So still the conservation of K or momentum is also preserved. Okay. So this happens for the direct band gap material. What happened to the indirect band gap material? In indirect band gap material, the valence band and the conduction band, they are not in the same EK diagram. Like this. This is a valence band. This is conduction band. Now, because they are indirect band gap, what happens if one electron wants to fall down? How it fall down? Two ways it can fall down. One way that this electron has to lose this. You see, now, unlike previously, they have the same K, same momentum. But here, you see the momentum here and here are different. So what it can do, it can come actually from this position up to, for example, this position by changing its momentum or lose of momentum. Then it can fall down. So there are two ways. This electron can come here. So one way from here to here by changing K, lose of momentum. So electron loses the momentum as phonon. When it loses momentum, kinetic energy, it actually makes a phonon. Phonon means actually vibration. And it falls down. Okay, which is actually very unlikely. Because the probability of this chances happening, this chance is very low. So there are another way. It can actually move from here to an intermediate state. Here. In an intermediate state. In this intermediate state, the distortion or dislocation of crystal is done. How it happens? If you add some imperfection to the crystal, then it can lose or deform, or it can, when it comes from this position to that position, what it do is actually losing both. It losing E, it losing K, both. And by this way, we can actually intentionally introduce energy state to reduce the carrier lifetime, which will ultimately assist the electronics to lose from E to K. And once it comes here, it actually directly falls down here. So you see which kind of material have this property: silicon, germanium. All these material, they are actually indirect band gap. This kind of material we can use very well in electronics. But for optics, we do not want that this happens. When, for example, this electron goes here, so there is a phonon, not photon. So when it goes from here to here, is phonon, and when it comes from here to here or here to here, is photon. So vibration means what? Vibration nothing but heat. We do not want to generate heat in our mechanism. In electronics, that is the reason the heat generates in silicon and germanium. What we do? We actually use a direct band gap material. Direct band gap material means instead of make it silicon, you see all these previous mechanism where we use homojunction, where a single type material, silicon, either silicon or germanium was used, but because they are indirect band gap material, we only use it in the electronics, not in optics. In optics, we really want to use a heterojunction where by gallium and arsenic, gallium and nitride, gallium or antimony, indium or phosphide, indium or arsenic, indium, by this combination, we actually engineer them so that the indirect becomes direct band gap. Means actually no heat generates in this process, only photon falls and Eg equivalent to a photon generates only. Means actually all our energy will convert to the light, not in heat. Heat means loss or noise in the system. We do not want that. Okay. So you see, we want to use two kind of mechanism. One, we really want to have a heterojunction material, or so that we can have a direct band gap mechanism there. Okay. Now, choice of material. Here actually we will justify why we have two things, like why we have heterojunction, why we will have heterojunction, and why we have direct band gap material. Okay, so far if you understood well, what is the problem of non-heterojunction? If it's a non-heterojunction, means it's homojunction, you cannot have direct band gap material. You definitely will have a indirect band gap material. If it's indirect, it creates heat. Okay, but at the same time, we have low concentration. You see, we have here we have low concentration of, because the electron or the holes, they are actually spread all over the boundary. We cannot have very high conversion. That's why we need to choose this material properly. This is a actually I try to draw it as perfect as possible. This is a diagram with a band gap energy and lattice constant. From where I got this band gap energy, you see, we have this gallium, we have silicon and germanium. We know their band gap energy, which is actually expressed in electron volt, and we also know the direct band gap materials, their band gap energy. I have actually plotted them. We have actually plotted them. You see, silicon and germanium, and also gallium arsenide, aluminum arsenide, gallium phosphide, indium phosphide. You see, indium arsenide, gallium antimony, aluminum antimony, all this material. Okay, so you see here, this like how many material combination. Let's make it summary. We can have one material, silicon. We add or you dope them. We can call. We may create P and N type material from them. Or we can use, instead of single material, we can use two material like gallium and arsenide, which has a like 3,5 material, right? So this is a we call binary material or binary combination. We can have ternary. You see, we can have binary combination. We have ternary, means 3 combination. We can have a 4 combination. Now we have seen there is a problem with 2 combination, gallium and arsenide. In gallium and arsenide, they are heterostructure. Sorry, they are homostructure. So we need an active material, means they becomes heterostructure. Heterostructure means 3, means they become ternary. Now, how to get this ternary? They do not get. For example, we have gallium arsenide here. We have aluminum arsenide here. Can we have gallium, aluminum arsenide? Yes, we can have. So how this will happen? Like how we can get that? Okay. So before that, let me show you periodic table. Knowledge of periodic table is very important. Okay. So here you see, this is our silicon. How to draw this? Let's see. Sorry, I cannot draw.
Sir, you have to. You can draw now, sir. You don't have to go to edit. I think if you click on the page now, it should draw.
Page now.
So just on the image, I mean, draw a few lines with your pen. It should
Yeah,
go.
I cannot draw it. Okay, I have another periodic table in PDF. It's easy to edit PDF. Yeah. So you see, we were concentrated in silicon so far, right? Silicon is a single material. Okay, instead of using silicon and impuritate them to make it N and P type, we actually do it some engineered. Okay, so we choose gallium and arsenide, isn't it? Gallium had 3 and arsenide had 5, so they can also work as the same as silicon, but they are 2 material. Now we say, okay, if there are 2 material, there is no active material in between them, it is not as good. So our homostructure can be concentrated to the heterostructure. Okay, so we can have like in our, what kind of combination we can have? We can have gallium arsenide. We can have indium phosphide. We can have aluminium phosphide. We can have aluminium antimony. You see, lots of combination can be possible. Or gallium phosphide can also be possible. You see, all this stuff can be possible, right? Now we actually need a 3 material combination. Now this periodic table is very important to find out which material can have combinations. You see, if you have 3, 5, you can make 2. You can actually make this with, for example, if you want to do some engineering with boron also to get this have 2. This will have so 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. Oh, they are stable. Okay, so instead of silicon, you can see you can use these 2 to make any like stable material. Anyway, so this material actually will give us the directions which third material can come here. So this picture also helps. So gallium arsenide, and aluminum arsenide. I want to create gallium aluminum arsenide. So gallium arsenide was there. In between, as a third material, I want to add aluminum. So they will have a gallium aluminum arsenide, which is actually our third material, right? This was first one, which is probably used in the electronics. This is our second choice, which also not good for like that much good for optics because it gives lots of losses. Okay, let's go for ternary combination, means another. So we will move towards this one. You see, there is a difficulties. If you go, what is this direction? Band gap, isn't it? This direction. So if we go for gallium arsenide to this direction, what we will do? We will actually increasing the band gap between gallium arsenide and probably of if you reach to here, you will actually losing some band gap. So losing band gap is not good. You see, I go back. You see band gap here. Band gap is low. You see, band gap is low. But you're when you going from gallium arsenide to the aluminum, what you are increasing? You are increasing the band gap. How far you can increase the band gap? Up to this, isn't it? Up to this, or you have at least your this one means actually you will decrease the refracting index. So at least this area has to be a little bit higher. So you has a limit, isn't it? Means if you go from gallium arsenide with these directions, with this direction, you cannot go like unlimited because at a certain point your band gap energy will increase, which actually jeopardize the whole idea. The whole engineering idea will jeopardize because you do not want your band gap like third active medium band gap is higher than the N and P type. For example, this is N type, this is P type. You do not want this active material band gap is higher than these two. You always want this active material band gap is lower than these two. Otherwise, your engineering like this, so all the effort is goes in vain. So how long you can go from here to here? Okay, if it can be ternary material, it can be quaternary, means it's actually 3 material, it can be 4 material. If it's 3 material, this is the formula. Okay, so 1.424 plus 1.24x, this x value goes from 0 to 0.45, means actually if it's here, it's 0, it's 45, 5 means 45%. If this distance to this distance is 100%, means you can go actually maximum to the half distance. Actually, little bit less than half. Means your gallium arsenide will become aluminum gallium arsenide. Means actually you lose gallium from 1 minus x. More x value, you lose gallium. And you increase the concentration of aluminum. But it can go up to, x can go up to maximum 45% or 0.45, maximum from 0 to 45% actually, if this is the whole is 100% distance. Guys, got the idea?
Yes, sir.
This is very important to understand. Like, for example, here we know Eg equal to h nu. H nu, nu can also be C by lambda. For example, lambda is a wavelength, physical quantity. For example, you want to create a 880 nanometer wavelength of a laser. So if you know the lambda, h is the Planck's constant, c is the velocity of light. So Eg becomes the constant, means the band gap becomes constant. For example, we don't, I didn't calculate, but imagine our band gap energy is here, somewhere here for 800 nanometer. For example, just example. So you will find, okay, this is 1 point, for example, 8 or something, right? For that x will be 0.35, just example. So if you put that one, you know, okay, you see, you know the, if you know the Eg, which is actually Eg, you can find which x you need, or if you know the x, you know which Eg. And if there is an Eg, you can easily find the lambda. So it's actually vice versa. If you want a particular wavelength, you can go to find the Eg, or if you have a Eg, you can find that at what Eg, like if this is my laser structure, at what wavelength it will lace. This is for 3. If you need 4, for example, indium phosphide, let's see, in your book there is an example. So choose. Let me choose that one. So indium gallium arsenic phosphide. So indium gallium arsenic phosphide. Okay. Okay. So let me remove those things. So it will be easier to show you all these things. Okay, so we like to find indium gallium arsenic phosphide. Okay, so where is that? Indium arsenic phosphide. No? Indium arsenic is here, and gallium phosphide. Gallium phosphide. Gallium phosphide is here. This one. So we'll actually go from here to here. Understand? So we like to create indium gallium arsenic phosphide, this material. Okay, from here to here. So it's actually four combination, 4 metal combination. You are going from indium arsenic to gallium phosphide. So this is actually this will be the formula. If it's 4, so change the value, same thing like previously, Y value. So you will actually see at what point how much actually concentration you need, actually percentage of how much indium arsenide and how much gallium phosphide you need to achieve this. So for example, if I give you a lambda that I want to create a laser with this nanometer, what should be the combination? You can find it from here, right? Isn't it? So this picture will tell you if I need a particular laser with particular wavelength, which combinations of materials I need. Okay, guys?
Yes, sir.
So probably you can expect some math in your exam from here. I will give some wavelength probably, or I will give whatever, and you will find at what wavelength and what combination of material you can create that laser. Okay, guys.